What if a stranger walked into the showroom, touched the motorcycle you were trying to sell, and turned out to be the chairman of the company? Lucas Drayton stood silently in front of the mirror inside his penthouse, looking down at the waking city of Portland. His normally well-groomed platinum hair was hidden beneath a worn baseball cap. A 3-day stubble blurred the reflection to the point that even he barely recognized himself. The tailored suit he once wore to shareholder meetings had been replaced by a creased leather jacket and frayed jeans. His hands, once crushed by engine parts in the early days of building his empire, now wore leather gloves to conceal the polished ring that marked the man who built it all. He adjusted the fake reading glasses, lowered his head slightly to face the reflection staring back at him, not of a successful businessman, but of a middle-aged man who had just sold his tech company shares to chase a youthful dream, to buy a motorcycle and ride free, like the days when he had nothing to lose. Lucas exhaled, not from nervousness, but because for the first time in years, he was preparing to return to the place he built with his bare hands, not as a CEO, but as a customer. 3 nights earlier, Lucas hadn't slept. His eyes were glued to satisfaction reports from the marketing team. The numbers didn't lie. Everything looked stable on the surface. A few minor complaints about sales service, some vague feedback on pricing and staff attitude, all easy enough for regional managers to overlook. But to Lucas, who had spent 2 decades selling bikes by looking customers in the eye, he knew something was off. And he also knew the only way to see the truth was to return to where it all began. He would become just another man, a man shopping for a motorcycle. And he wanted to see exactly how those wearing his name on their uniforms treated someone they believed no one was watching. The old pickup Lucas rented from a local service pulled into the back lot of Rebel Rider's flagship showroom, the very place where he once screwed in the first light bulb. He didn't use the staff entrance, no ID card. He parked along the tree line, right where first-time customers usually did. From that angle, the glass-fronted showroom framed a perfect scene. Inside, the lights were golden and warm, motorcycles lined up in symmetrical rows on floors polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the sky above. The scent of fresh leather and a hint of fuel lingered in the air, the exact balance Lucas once spent months perfecting to make customers feel like they were already halfway down the highway. Lucas pushed the door open. The familiar feeling rushed through him for a second before being buried by the strangeness of it all. He hadn't stepped foot here in nearly 2 years, and from the perspective of someone in charge, he had never walked in needing to decide. A woman's voice called out, gentle yet professional. "Welcome to Rebel Riders. I'm May. Can I help you with anything today?" Lucas gave a modest nod, deliberately adjusting his cap to cast a hesitant look. "Just browsing. I recently sold my shares in a software company and figured maybe it's time to give myself something a little crazy." May smiled, her eyes lighting up with the excitement she often saw in first-timers. "If it's speed, adrenaline, and peak design you're after, I have just the thing. Ducati Panigale V4R, fresh off the truck yesterday." Lucas suppressed a grin, staying in character. That was the very model he once pitched modifications for, particularly to its cooling system. Now he stood before it like a stranger. For the next hour, Lucas silently observed. He didn't care about any one bike. What he watched for was the look in the staff's eyes when a customer hesitated, how they explained the engine, the safety features, or whether they simply treated each guest with respect. May impressed him. Others did not. A few rushed the sale. Some grew distracted when asked technical questions. Lucas etched each face into memory. He said nothing, but behind each polite smile and nod was a growing tremor in his faith being logged moment by moment. Then Blake, the sales manager, approached, casually grabbing the Ducati's handlebars and leaning in to whisper, "We can work out a better price if you don't mention this to the big boss." Lucas felt the muscles in his face twitch. That was the moment he realized. The most beautiful bike in the showroom might be paired with the biggest lie, but he didn't react. Not yet. Because the storm he was about to unleash wouldn't just sweep away a single motorcycle. It would tear through an entire pipeline, a whole system, and maybe even the people he once trusted the most. Lucas Drayton stood beside the Ducati Panigale V4R, one hand resting lightly on the handlebars, his eyes drifting across the space he once considered his passion project. Every detail in the showroom radiated a kind of polished perfection, the lighting hitting all the right angles, the scent designed to evoke intensity, framed photos of famous riders stamped with the company logo, all curated to create a sense of conquest. But now, posing as an ordinary customer, that same lighting felt like it was meant to hide something. And the feeling sharpened as he observed how the staff behaved. May, the young woman he had met at the entrance, was still patiently assisting an older couple in the corner, her expression open and sincere. But on the far side of the showroom, another employee, hair slicked back, name tag reading Ryan, was quickly typing into an electronic form, his eyes flicking back and forth before tapping out a few final keystrokes. As Lucas happened to pass behind him, a red warning flashed briefly on the inventory screen. Item released, technical fault, followed by a chassis code that struck a chord of recognition. Too familiar, because Lucas had personally approved that very model, a new Triumph Street Triple that had shown no issues throughout 2 months of internal testing. Ryan swiftly swiped to another interface and hit Confirm Release. No one noticed, no one questioned it. Lucas stayed in character. He walked slowly toward the touring section, home to the high-end bikes built for serious road trips. A group of 3 men were gathered there, dressed like textbook bikers, worn leather jackets, heavy boots, dark sunglasses worn indoors. One pointed to a Harley and spoke just loud enough for Lucas to hear. "Just pay the guy Ray up front, paperwork comes later, all we gotta do is grab the key and ride." Lucas squinted. Ray, that name surfaced again like a shadow. Miguel Ray, the warehouse manager he once hired for his reputation of being strict and honest, was the only person with authority to mark a bike as technical fault in the system. If Ray was the source, then Ryan was simply following orders. But Lucas didn't act yet. He took a step back, pretending to jot down notes in a small notebook, just another customer weighing the budget. Part of him wanted to confront Ryan right away, to call May over, to demand how they were trained. But another part, the one that had turned Rebel Riders from a single garage into a regional brand, whispered, "Stay calm, listen more." Because people like Ryan don't act alone. They have cover. And Lucas wasn't ready to move until he saw the whole board. As he quietly made his way toward the pre-owned section, something else made him stop in his tracks. A woman, about 30, modestly dressed, was speaking with an employee named Jace, her young son by her side. The boy pointed to a small red bike and squealed with joy. The mother bent down and asked, "Can he try sitting on it?" Jace frowned, then gave a slight shake of his head, looking at the child as if he were a nuisance rather than a potential customer. "We don't let kids sit on the bikes. If you're planning to buy, I'll grab the keys." His voice was flat, stripped of any goodwill. Lucas could see the surprise in the mother's eyes, then the quiet shame as she picked up her son and walked away without another word. Lucas couldn't suppress the emotion. He turned around slowly but firmly. His heart was pounding, not from anger, but from disappointment. That little boy could not possibly have harmed the display bike, but that cold response had the potential to damage an entire brand. Cracks like that never show up in quarterly reports. They only appear when a founder bends down to look beneath the polish. And today, Lucas had seen it. A showroom that seemed flawless on the surface was, in truth, fracturing at the seams. Lucas Drayton walked slowly along the row of high-performance motorcycles, his fingers gliding lightly over the premium leather seat. He paused in front of a special edition BMW S1000RR, a sports model for which, just months earlier, he had personally signed off on an upgraded suspension system. Lucas felt a tightness in his chest as he traced the familiar curves of the machine, a bike that once embodied his creativity, engineering, and pride, now sitting before him like an artifact up for silent auction at some black market deal. Posing as a hesitant buyer, he reached for the handlebars, then suddenly turned slightly, striking the stance of a man simply contemplating, while his ears tuned into the conversation behind him. 2 men had just entered the showroom, their voices low and gravelly, cutting through the air like a blade. "Ray said tonight, 11 o'clock, behind the service lot," the first voice murmured. "Cash only, no paperwork, no questions. It's the red Ducati, fresh off the truck." Lucas didn't turn around, his eyes still locked on the instrument panel of the bike, but his heartbeat quickened, and his grip tightened on the handlebar. Word is, if you know how to work the system, it's recorded as damaged in transit, wiped from the database, and shows up somewhere else like magic. The second voice let out a smirk of a laugh. "Ray handles everything. Just bring the 40 grand, not a penny short." Last time he even threw in extra accessories free of charge. Lucas blinked. Ray again. Ray. Miguel Ray, the man who once called Lucas his life changer, the one who had begged for a second chance after his previous company collapsed under accounting scandals. And now, could Ray be turning this showroom into a hub for illegal vehicle trafficking? Lucas straightened up, adjusted his glasses, pretending to look toward the promotional banner, but using the reflection in the lenses to observe the two men behind him. One wore a leather jacket with a gang insignia on the back, a faded skull tattoo on one arm, the other hand scrolling through his phone as he muttered, "Ray's been pulling this stunt for a year now. The boss is too busy counting profits to even notice." Lucas held his breath. A chill passed through his coat and into his skin. That was the first time he had ever heard someone refer to him as the boss who doesn't know anything. An insult, but also a wake-up call. If what they said was true, it wasn't just the reputation of rebel riders at stake. It was legal exposure, financial collapse, and the very survival of the company he had built with a lifetime's worth of sacrifice. One of the men suddenly pointed toward the maintenance area, raising his voice just enough for Lucas to hear. "That guy Derek, the sales manager, he's in on it too. He's the one who brings in special customers for Ray. Everything's disguised perfectly. The system never picks it up. The records are clean like glass." Lucas froze. Derek, the same man he had promoted after rescuing a failing branch in Salem. If Derek was involved, this wasn't just misconduct. This was a network, a pipeline, a criminal organization embedded inside his brand. Lucas quietly stepped away from the BMW and walked over to the information desk, where a stack of brochures outlined financing options. He pretended to read, but his mind was spinning. What now? Call the police? Take pictures of the two men? Confront Derek? No, acting now would blow the chance to trace the full chain. People like Ray don't operate alone. To survive this long, he had to be protected by someone with access, with keys to the warehouse, with the authority to alter inventory logs. And Lucas knew if he moved too soon, they would all disappear before dawn. He took a deep breath, buttoned his coat, and walked toward the exit. Tonight, he wouldn't just be seeking justice. He would be reclaiming the name Drayton, a name built on speed, on truth, and above all, on trust. Lucas Drayton sat deep in the corner of a coffee shop just 3 blocks from the showroom, his hand not yet touching the espresso that had long gone cold. The warm amber glow of the overhead lights reflected off his laptop screen, where the inventory management system displayed hundreds of dense rows of data, each line just a string of cold numbers, yet powerful enough to determine the fate of an entire business. He opened the software Ray himself had once recommended, a remote integrated inventory tracking system that was originally hailed as a technological leap forward. The irony was cruel, because now that very tool had become a window into the violations hidden beneath the polished surface of the showroom. Lucas began combing through every vehicle shipment received in the past 6 months, cross-referencing transport logs, original chassis numbers, and warranty documentation. At first, everything seemed in order, too perfect, even, until he noticed something strange. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, at least one high-end motorcycle was marked as damaged in transit and sent to maintenance. Those bikes never reappeared in the system. No repair orders, no incident photos, no return reports. They simply vanished. Evaporated. Lucas narrowed his eyes and pulled up the staff shift schedule. Every single night a bike was flagged for transport damage coincided with Ray's overnight shift, and no one else's. What's more, on those same nights, the security camera system suddenly recorded no activity. The same automated message appeared each time. No notable events recorded. It was consistent, robotic. And Lucas knew that was the biggest red flag of all. Because no motorcycle showroom in the world receives late-night deliveries without a single frame of footage, unless someone intentionally erased it. His hand tightened slightly around the mouse as he navigated to the employee access log. Ray was the only one with Level 3 clearance, the level that allowed for camera data manipulation and emergency inventory release. But when Lucas traced the authorization trail, what sent a chill down his spine wasn't Ray. It was the person who had approved the elevated access, Michael Faulkner, head of security, a man who had been with Rebel Riders for 15 years. A man Lucas had once described as the bedrock of loyalty. Lucas closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them sharply. No assumptions. He had to dig deeper. He pulled up Ray's personnel file. It was pristine. No criminal record, no policy violations, 3 commendations from his previous employers. But when Lucas reached out to the 3 dealerships Ray had worked at before, what he found made his blood run cold. The first dealership had gone bankrupt after the disappearance of 7 BMW motorcycles. The second suffered a warehouse fire on the exact day Ray submitted his resignation. The third was shut down following a government investigation into chassis number fraud. None of them had ever formally charged Ray. But Lucas saw the pattern. Every place Ray touched collapsed within 24 months, the exact length of his tenure. Then Lucas froze as he uncovered another eerie pattern. Every time Ray moved jobs, a female staff member accompanied him, listed under titles like Customer Care Specialist or Senior Sales Advisor. This time at Rebel Riders, she was named Tina. Lucas checked the central showroom roster. Tina had been hired 3 months after Ray, right on cue. Her file was spotless, her credentials neatly arranged, but her last employer had experienced a data breach involving client records, a scandal that was never pinned on anyone. A chill traced the length of Lucas's spine. He realized he was not dealing with a couple of rogue employees chasing quick money. He was facing a mobile network, methodically organized and operating like a professional unit, one person to erase trails, another to close sales, and yet another to handle legal loopholes. A crime syndicate in the disguise of a showroom, and he was the name at the top, the one who would be held legally and publicly accountable. His phone vibrated softly. A text from an unknown number. Item ready. 11 p.m. sharp. No papers. Bring full amount. R. Lucas froze. They had pulled his information from the customer form he had filled out that morning. They thought he was a real buyer. Part of him felt fear, not for his life, but because he now understood something with brutal clarity. If he hesitated, tonight wouldn't just be about the sale of one bike. It would be the night the entire operation vanished, wiped clean, gone as if it had never existed. And Rebel Riders would be left behind, an empty shell, its reputation buried for good. The afternoon sun cast a pale golden glow through the cafe window, but inside Lucas Drayton, there was only a thick, suffocating darkness. He remained in the same seat, laptop open in front of him, fingers scrolling relentlessly through employee logs and internal system records. Every name he once trusted now had to be re-examined, not with logic, but with the survival instinct of a leader who had stood on the razor's edge between triumph and collapse. Tina, the sales associate with the soft smile and voice just warm enough to inspire confidence, now appeared like a ghost haunting every showroom Ray's crew had ever touched. Her file painted her as dynamic, full of potential, excellent communicator, but Lucas now read something else entirely. She was the closer, the one who built trust before pulling the trigger. He opened another set of records, this time tracking system logins. For the past 2 months, Tina had routinely accessed the CRM software outside working hours, something only management had permission to do. And the one who granted that access? Derek, the sales manager Lucas had once praised in a press interview for his modern salesmanship. Leaning back in his chair, Lucas massaged his temples. The picture was beginning to take shape. Ray controlled the warehouse. Derek handled the numbers and engineered the fake transactions, and Tina played the face, sealing deals with carefully scripted charm. But was that the whole machine? Lucas wasn't certain. A system this precise had to have a safeguard, someone to shield it from detection, someone to neutralize suspicion. Someone like the head of security, Michael. Lucas pulled out his phone and opened the app used to track system activity for the security cameras. Using a temporary admin code he still retained, he uncovered something that made his blood run cold. Michael, the man responsible for overseeing the entire security system, was consistently logging in during the very time frames labeled as data loss. Worse yet, he had uploaded a specific line of code, one that tricked the system into reporting scheduled maintenance on the same nights motorcycles were being illegally moved. Lucas clenched his jaw. Oaths of loyalty, family dinners, firm handshakes, all of it now evaporated like smoke in the face of brutal truth. But what nearly made Lucas leap from his seat wasn't the data. It was what he saw through the cafe window. Tina. She was walking along the sidewalk across the street, texting while glancing around. Her eyes landed on a parked car, a silver sedan he instantly recognized as Derek's. Derek sat inside, eyes locked on his phone, face tense. Lucas reached into his bag and pulled out a compact camera, the kind he used to carry on motorcycle trips in his younger days, and snapped shot after shot by reflex. A minute later, Tina got into the car, the door shut with a thud. The sedan started up and rolled away. No lights, no second glance. Lucas stayed frozen, cold sweat trickling down his back. The full team was assembling. They were getting ready. Tonight's meeting wasn't a one-off sale, it was the escape. They knew they'd been compromised. And if they weren't caught tonight, they'd vanish without a trace. Rebel Riders would be left behind as an empty shell, its name buried beneath scandal. He glanced at his watch. 6:47 p.m. Just over 4 hours left. He had to choose, stay silent and keep watching, or call the police and risk losing the chance to take down the entire ring. But Lucas knew he no longer had the luxury of emotional decisions. He dialed the number of the only person outside the system he could trust, Special Agent Melina Reyes, who had once worked with him on a tech theft awareness campaign. After 3 rings, her steady voice came through. "Drayton, something wrong?" Lucas didn't answer right away. He looked out the window one last time. Tina was gone. "I'm not sure," he said slowly, "but I think I'm standing in the middle of a federal-level money laundering operation, and it's inside my own house." Night fell like a thick curtain, casting a suspicious silence over the industrial district. Lucas Drayton parked the dusty gray rental car at the darkest intersection 3 blocks from the showroom, his hand tightening around the mini camera in his coat pocket as he felt every heartbeat echo against his ribcage. The neon green glow of the Rebel Riders sign lit up the night sky with an eerie chill, no longer the proud beacon he once erected across state lines, but now resembling a signal flare for vultures circling in the dark. Lucas activated the recorder clipped to his chest pocket, checked the camera battery, and slowly lowered his seat to watch through the rearview mirror. 10:47 p.m. The back door of the warehouse swung open. A dull yellow light spilled out, stretching across the concrete. A figure emerged, short, stocky, shaved head. It was Ray. Phone in hand, he paced nervously. He didn't look like a man in control. He looked like someone being pushed toward the edge. Behind him, 2 others appeared, wheeling out a motorcycle covered with a gray tarp. Lucas raised the lens, zooming in. The flaming red tail and aerodynamic frame were unmistakable. The latest Ducati Panigale V4R, no license plate, shipping labels still attached. 10:58. A black SUV rolled into the loading zone. Its doors swung open. The man who stepped out was the same one Lucas had overheard in the showroom that morning. Leather jacket, Rolex watch, silver briefcase in hand. 2 men flanked him, dressed in black with earpieces, moving like trained professionals. These weren't ordinary buyers. Lucas understood exactly what this was. A full extraction. Not just one bike, an entire load. A mafia-style liquidation before fleeing the state. The bike under the tarp was lifted from the dock and transferred to a waiting white truck. At that moment, another figure entered from the right. Hair tied back, posture unmistakable. Tina. No sales uniform, no friendly smile. Her face was stone, her eyes void of emotion. She was no longer a sales associate, she was a cog in the machine. Lucas captured every movement on camera. 11:05. A second vehicle arrived, and Lucas couldn't suppress the shiver. Michael, the head of security, stepped out and walked straight to Ray like a seasoned commander greeting an old ally. They shook hands, firm, familiar. There was no doubt now. Lucas knew this was it, the moment. He picked up his phone and opened the contact labeled S, Special Agent Melina Reyes, and hit dial. "The team is in position," came her calm voice. "We'll move in as soon as you confirm the mark." Lucas ended the call and activated the beacon. 3 minutes later, from the corner of the block, red and blue lights split the darkness. Sirens pierced the still air. From all directions, police cruisers and armored FBI SUVs surged in like a tidal wave. Lucas leapt from his car, running toward the back entrance of the showroom. He had to see it, and he was not disappointed. Ray panicked, dropped the briefcase, and sprinted toward the fence. Lucas swerved the car to block him. Headlights blasted into Ray's face. He froze. The light revealed the fury and disbelief in his eyes. "You?" he spat. Lucas stepped out, removed his glasses. "Sorry," he said softly. "Just conducting a customer satisfaction survey." Ray shouted and reached into his coat, but Lucas stepped forward, swept his leg, and slammed him down with the precision of a college wrestling champion. 2 officers tackled Ray, snapping handcuffs on. As he was shoved into the police van, Ray twisted around and hissed, "You have no idea what you just destroyed." Lucas said nothing, because he knew, tonight, he hadn't destroyed anything. He had saved everything. Under the flickering glow of patrol lights, the rear yard of rebel riders had turned into an uninvited stage, a place where truth was being dragged into the open. Lucas Drayton stood amid the chaos, his leather jacket dusted with the grime of the road, cold sweat tracing a line down his spine. He was no longer a successful CEO or a hidden owner. He was a living witness to the unraveling of a network that once bore his name. Special Agent Melina Reyes, dressed in a sharp black suit, her FBI badge gleaming at the collar, approached him, a thick folder in her hand. "You were right," she said curtly, "and you've stumbled onto something bigger than you imagined." A shout rang out nearby. Michael, the man who once swore loyalty before the board, was being handcuffed, screaming, "This was all Lucas's plan. He gave the orders. We were just following instructions." Officers held him firmly, but his eyes burned as if trying to set fire to his former boss's reputation. Melina gave Lucas a sideways glance, then turned to Michael with icy calm. "You know what's funny?" she said. "We've been tracking this for 6 months, and in those 6 months, Lucas Drayton didn't even know you were being investigated. But he still collected the evidence." "You? You left a trail in every single login session. Real clever." Michael fell silent. But it wasn't over. Another staff member, Derek, was escorted past the swarm of officers, his face pale. An investigator stepped forward, holding a phone with its screen already unlocked. Visible were a series of anonymous transactions, money transfers, and foreign account codes. Derek glanced at the display, then nearly collapsed. I only kept that as leverage, in case Ray turned on me. I didn't think this would blow up like this." Lucas didn't react. He simply stood and watched, like a man reciting a eulogy for his own brand. But Melina didn't let him sink too deep into that moment. She approached again, the folder still in hand, dense with evidence. Rebel Riders wasn't the only target. This is part of a federal network, an illegal vehicle distribution ring. It all traces back to an organization called the Golden Chain Gang. They use motorcycle dealerships as a front for laundering money and smuggling. Lucas clenched his fist but kept his tone even, and they chose me as the scapegoat. Built fake trails, staged it so that if things went south, I'd be the one painted as the mastermind. Melina nodded. "Exactly. It's a self-preserving system. If discovered, they throw you to the public and force you to either take the fall or lose everything." Lucas turned his eyes to Tina, now stripped of her disguise, her sharp gaze locked onto his. She curled her lips into a smirk and said just loud enough for him to hear, "If you hadn't come back to the showroom, we'd have disappeared by this afternoon." He didn't respond. What he felt wasn't anger, it was sadness. Not because she was clever, but because he had once been naive enough to believe every smile was genuine. At that moment, an officer emerged from the warehouse carrying a laptop. "We recovered some of the deleted camera footage. We've restored 82%. Melina took it, eyes scanning the thumbnails. Then she turned to Lucas, and for the first time that night, offered a small, measured smile. "I think the press will want to know how you helped bring this ring down." Lucas stood silent for a second. Then he nodded. And as he stepped forward, past the rows of motorcycles still leaning in disarray, he knew he hadn't just reclaimed his company. He had reclaimed the truth. 3 months after the fateful raid, the morning sun spread evenly across the glass facade of the newly renovated Rebel Riders showroom, as if signaling that the past had been wiped clean. Lucas Drayton stood in the center of the main hall, hands in the pockets of his heavy coat, eyes following a young couple smiling beside a freshly handed-over Triumph Street triple. No one recognized the man once mistaken for an average customer. No one suspected that he was the one who had dared to tear the curtain off the truth from the very place that bore his name. From behind, a calm, steady voice called out, "Latest quarterly security report. No losses, no interruptions, and no surprises." Lucas turned to find Melina Reyes, no longer a federal agent, but now Rebel Riders' head of security, with the composed sharpness of someone who tolerated no deviation in the system. He took the tablet and scanned through it. Every motorcycle was correctly tagged. Every inventory report matched down to the unit. Every financial transaction authenticated by blockchain anti-fraud technology. Everything in place, as precise as a finely tuned engine. "How's Project Tracer running?" he asked without lifting his eyes. Melina nodded. "Every premium bike now has a built-in GPS chip that can't be removed, and our forgery detection system just handed a Portland crew straight into the arms of local law enforcement last week." Lucas chuckled, nodding with quiet satisfaction. In the past, all they cared about was speed and sales. Now, every motorcycle stood as proof of transparency. He walked past the maintenance area, once the nerve center of Ray's operation, now redesigned like a tech lab. Every screwdriver bore a unique QR code, and every repair log was recorded and stored in the internal system. No more shadows to hide in. But what made Lucas proudest wasn't the tech. It was in the back of the shop, where a group of new employees were being guided by a seasoned technician. All of them had joined through the Second Chance program Lucas personally launched. Young people who had once made mistakes, illegal street racers, license violations, but were now given a true start. "Welcome to Rebel Riders," Lucas said as he entered the training zone, prompting the group to look up in surprise. 3 months ago, this very floor was the scene of a federal money laundering operation, but we don't let that define us. And we won't let the past define any of you either. Here, the only things that matter are kindness, honesty, and the will to start again. Applause erupted. In the group, Lucas spotted Jake, the young man once arrested for illegal racing, now the most diligent trainee, bowing his head in gratitude, his eyes filled with both thanks and resolve. Lucas gave him a small nod in return. For him, that was enough. Back in his office, his eyes caught a notification on the screen. Project Renaissance Early Launch Proposal. It was the initiative he had once dreamed of, partnering with local government to create safe riding workshops, trade training programs for at-risk youth, and community efforts to make motorcycles more than speed machines, but tools for connection. Lucas smiled, opened the email, and typed just one line. "Move it up 1 month. Life doesn't wait for readiness." As the afternoon light streamed across the display row, long shadows fell over the polished showroom floor. Lucas walked slowly past each bike, a strange sense of peace settling in his chest. Every corner, every scar once marked by betrayal had now been filled with honest effort. He paused in the center of the hall, beneath the newly mounted Rebel Riders logo, its letters gleaming in the golden light. "Don't just ride, lead." Melina came up beside him. "Ready for the quarterly meeting?" Lucas nodded. "Always ready. And this time, we're not leaving anyone behind." Together they walked into the meeting room where the new team, flawed but brave, awaited. There was no longer hesitation in their faces, only the gaze of people who knew they weren't just fixing motorcycles. They were repairing trust. And to Lucas Drayton, no speed would ever matter more than the speed of forgiveness and change. In the world of business, it's not technology or payroll that determines the fate of a brand, but trust, the most fragile thing, yet also the most powerful when preserved the right way. Lucas didn't just catch the wrongdoers, he proved that a culture of integrity can be rebuilt, even from the very place where betrayal once took root. If you believe that transparency and courage are still the foundation of every lasting success, then like this video, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more inspiring stories, and don't forget to leave a comment with the phrase "Hold the Roots" to help spread this message.